Well, we were promised a prime time on a Saturday night, like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
What they didn't tell me is you're going to follow the Grateful Dead.
John Fogerty is a legend in the music world, the voice behind Creedence Clearwater Revival's timeless hits. But behind the iconic songs and the fame lies a shocking truth. Fogerty's battle with the music industry is a story of betrayal, legal wars, and an incredible comeback. How did one of rock's greatest songwriters lose control of his own music? And how did he outsmart the industry to reclaim his legacy? John Fogerty's story begins in the late 1960s, a time when rock music was exploding with creativity and rebellion. But while bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones dominated the charts, a gritty, swampy sound was brewing in California. A sound that would change music forever. Creedence Clearwater Revival, led by John Fogerty, wasn't just another band. They were a phenomenon. But how did a group of guys from El Cerrito, California, create music that sounded like it was straight out of the Mississippi Delta? And what was the secret behind Fogerty's songwriting genius that made CCR one of the most successful bands of their time? Fogerty's journey into music started young. Born in 1945, he grew up in a working-class family where money was tight but dreams were big. By the time he was in high school, Fogerty had already fallen in love with rock and roll, inspired by legends like Elvis Presley and Little Richard. But it wasn't just the music that captivated him, it was the storytelling. Fogerty had a knack for weaving vivid tales into his songs, creating anthems that felt both personal and universal. When CCR formed in the mid-1960s, they started as a cover band, playing local gigs and honing their sound. But it wasn't until Fogerty took the reins as the primary songwriter that the band truly found their voice. Songs like Proud Mary, Bad Moon Rising, and Fortunate Son weren't just hits. They were cultural landmarks. CCR's music captured the spirit of the times, blending rock, blues, and country into a sound that was uniquely their own. But here's the twist. While CCR's success seemed unstoppable, Fogerty was already facing challenges behind the scenes. The band's rapid rise to fame put immense pressure on him as the primary creative force. He was writing, singing, and producing most of their music, all while navigating the complexities of the music industry. And then there was the contract, a deal with Fantasy Records that would later become the source of Fogerty's greatest struggles. What most people don't know is that Fogerty's early success came at a cost. The music industry was a cutthroat business, and Fogerty was about to learn just how ruthless it could be. But before we dive into the dark side of his story, let's take a closer look at how CCR became one of the most iconic bands of the 20th century, and why Fogerty's talent was both a blessing and a curse. Imagine creating something extraordinary, a piece of art that resonates with millions of people, only to discover that you don't actually own it. That's exactly what happened to John Fogerty. In the early days of CCR, Fogerty signed a contract with Fantasy Records that would haunt him for decades. But how did a young, ambitious artist end up signing away the rights to his own music? And why did it take so long for him to realize the gravity of his mistake? The story begins in 1964, when CCR, then known as the Gollywogs, signed with Fantasy Records. At the time, Fogerty and his bandmates were just happy to have a record deal. They were young, inexperienced, and eager to make it big. But the contract they signed was heavily skewed in favor of the label. Fantasy Records owned the rights to CCR's music, meaning Fogerty had no control over how his songs were used or how much he earned from them. At first, this didn't seem like a big deal. CCR was on top of the world, and Fogerty was focused on creating music. But as the band's success grew, so did the problems. Fantasy Records began exploiting Fogerty's work, licensing his songs for commercials, movies, and other projects without his consent. Meanwhile, Fogerty was earning a fraction of what his music was worth. The breaking point came when Fogerty realized that he didn't even own the rights to his own name. Fantasy Records claimed ownership of the name John Fogerty, meaning he couldn't release music under his own name without their permission. It was a devastating blow for an artist who had poured his heart and soul into his work. But here's the kicker. Fogerty wasn't alone. Countless artists in the 1960s and 1970s signed similar contracts, lured by the promise of fame and fortune. The music industry was built on exploitation, and Fogerty's story is a stark reminder of how easily artists can lose control of their own creations. So, how did Fogerty respond to this betrayal? Did he fight back, or did he accept his fate? The answer lies in the legal battles that would define the next chapter of his career, a chapter filled with twists, turns, and shocking revelations. John Fogerty's fight for control of his music is one of the most dramatic stories in rock history. But what exactly happened during those legal battles, and why did it take so long for Fogerty to reclaim his rights? The truth is, Fogerty's struggle wasn't just about money. It was about artistic freedom, integrity, and the right to own your own work. The legal wars began in the 1970s. Shortly after CCR disbanded, Fogerty was determined to regain control of his music, but Fantasy Records wasn't going to let go without a fight. The label sued Fogerty, claiming that he owed them more music under the terms of his contract. Fogerty countersued, arguing that the contract was unfair and exploitative. The case dragged on for years, draining Fogerty financially and emotionally. At one point, he was so disillusioned with the music industry that he considered quitting altogether. But Fogerty refused to back down. He knew that his fight wasn't just about him. It was about standing up for all artists who had been exploited by the system. The most shocking moment came when Fogerty was accused of plagiarizing himself. After releasing new music that sounded similar to his old CCR hits, Fantasy Records sued him, claiming that he was copying his own work. The case went to court, and Fogerty was forced to defend his creativity in front of a jury. It was a surreal and humiliating experience, but Fogerty emerged victorious. The court ruled that an artist cannot plagiarize themselves, setting a precedent that would protect musicians for years to come. But even after winning the case, Fogerty still didn't have control of his music. It would take decades of legal battles and negotiations before he finally regained the rights to his songs. So, how did Fogerty manage to outsmart the industry and reclaim his legacy? The answer lies in his resilience, determination, and unwavering belief in the power of art. Imagine being sued for sounding too much like yourself. That's exactly what happened to John Fogerty. In one of the most bizarre legal cases in music history, Fogerty was accused of plagiarizing his own work.
But anyhow, so Saul was suing me, owning the old song, and wanted to own my new song, Old Man Down the Road.
But how did this case come about? And what does it reveal about the music industry's control over artists? The story begins in the 1980s, when Fogerty released his solo album, Centerfield. The album was a critical and commercial success, but one song in particular caught the attention of Fantasy Records. The Old Man Down the Road sounded eerily similar to CCR's classic hit, Run Through the Jungle. Fantasy Records claimed that Fogerty had copied his own work and sued him for copyright infringement. The case went to trial, and Fogerty was forced to defend his creativity in court. He even performed both songs live in front of the jury to prove that they were distinct compositions. In the end, the court ruled in Fogerty's favor, stating that an artist cannot plagiarize themselves. But the case had a lasting impact on Fogerty. It highlighted the absurdity of the music industry's control over artists and the lengths to which labels would go to protect their profits. For Fogerty, it was a wake-up call, a reminder that the fight for artistic freedom was far from over. So, what did Fogerty do next? How did he turn this bizarre legal battle into a stepping stone for his comeback? The answer lies in his determination to outsmart the industry and reclaim his legacy. John Fogerty's comeback is one of the most inspiring stories in music history. After years of legal battles and personal struggles, Fogerty emerged stronger than ever, proving that resilience and creativity can triumph over adversity. But how did he do it? And what lessons can we learn from his journey? Fogerty's comeback began in the 1990s, when he finally regained control of his music. Through a combination of legal maneuvering and sheer determination, Fogerty outsmarted the industry that had tried to silence him. He re-recorded his classic CCR hits, ensuring that he would earn royalties from their use. He also continued to write and perform new music, proving that his talent was as strong as ever. But Fogerty's comeback wasn't just about reclaiming his music. It was about reclaiming his identity. For years, he had been defined by his legal battles and his struggles with the industry. But with his comeback, Fogerty showed the world that he was more than just a victim. He was a survivor. Today, John Fogerty is in control of his legacy. He's spoken out about the importance of artists' rights and the need for fair contracts in the music industry. His story is a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for what is right. In a triumphant turn of events, January 2023 marked a significant milestone. John Fogerty successfully acquired a majority interest in the global publishing rights to his CCR catalog. This achievement not only restored his ownership, but also underscored the importance of artists having control over their work. John Fogerty's journey is far from over. In recent years, he's continued to speak out about the music industry and the challenges faced by artists. But what does the future hold for Fogerty, and what can we learn from his story? In recent interviews, Fogerty has opened up about his struggles with the industry and the impact they had on his mental health. He's also discussed the importance of protecting artists' rights and ensuring that they are fairly compensated for their work. Fogerty's story is a powerful reminder of the challenges faced by artists in the music industry, but it's also a story of hope and resilience. Through his determination and creativity, Fogerty outsmarted the industry and reclaimed his legacy. And in doing so, he inspired countless others to fight for their own artistic freedom. Fogerty's songs are timeless. Tracks like Proud Mary, Fortunate Son, and Have You Ever Seen the Rain have become anthems for generations, transcending time and genre. But behind these iconic hits lies a story of sacrifice and struggle. Fogerty didn't just write these songs. He poured his heart and soul into them, only to have them taken away by an industry more concerned with profits than artistry. This brings us to the heart of Fogerty's story, the fight for control. For decades, Fogerty battled to reclaim the rights to his music, facing off against a system designed to exploit artists. His legal wars were not just about money. They were about dignity, integrity, and the right to own your own work. And while Fogerty eventually emerged victorious, his fight serves as a stark reminder of the challenges faced by artists in an industry that often prioritizes profit over creativity. But Fogerty's story doesn't end with his legal battles. In fact, his comeback is perhaps the most inspiring part of his journey. After years of struggle, Fogerty found a way to outsmart the industry. Let's celebrate his triumphs, learn from his struggles, and continue the fight for artistic freedom.